Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are here with a video today. As you can see on the screen, we're talking a bit about genocide. Touchy subject. Probably YouTube will try to age gate this or something, but it's important, I think, for anybody to be aware of. I mean, shoot, I feel this is something you should at least be learning in middle to high school. But yeah. Because it needs to be known early in life that these kinds of evils are too often brought about. But before I get into the video, I'm going to let you know I have two ways to donate to the channel. I have a Patreon, which is a month to month, and I have a Coffee account, which you can also do month to month, or one-time donations. If you can't afford it, don't donate. I'm talking if you are having trouble paying bills, taking care of things, don't donate. I'd rather you be able to take care of things for yourself. Be able to afford things. To pay your bills. Times are tough enough for all of us out there. If you can afford it and you want to donate, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. But with that, we're going to jump into the video. While we're doing it here, I'm getting my pills together because I am behind this morning. Well, today when I'm filming this at this point, it's almost 4 p.m. Time slips by on me. But, yeah. We are talking about genocide. Genocide should be a major topic right now because of what's going on in Israel/Palestine. And I say Israel/Palestine because technically it's supposed to be the land of both countries. But Israel is not exactly treating the Palestinians with fairness and equity. With even human decency. They are treating them as if they are lesser beings. We have heard terms like trim the grass used to describe how they treat the Palestinians, the Gazans. So yeah. It's just, it's despicable. And often is a key component you'll see in the treatment of other peoples that helps them justify the committing of genocide. And yeah, honestly, the Native Americans in the U.S. were genocided. And you'll see that comparison become a little more clear as we go along. But yeah, we named them savages and brutes and yeah, a lot of despicable names. But as I wanted to get in here, this is directly from the UN. If I can get the cursor to work for me here. Yeah, United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect. The word genocide was first coined by Polish lawyer Raphael Lemkin in 1944 in his book Axis Rule in Occupied Europe. Raphael Lemkin, here's the Wikipedia article on him. But yeah. As an actual term, genocide wasn't coined, but it had been going on for a long time. See, he learned about the Ottoman genocide of the Armenian people in World War One. The most famous, perhaps, is the Holocaust of the Jewish people in World War II. But it sometimes feels as if the Jewish people didn't learn their own lesson when they were let's say Israel, not Jewish people. Got to make that clear, because it wasn't the Jewish people themselves, it was Israel, Zionist, who were too willing to treat Palestinians the way they have been treated by Israel. You know, it's not we once lived amongst each other, we can do so again. No. They treat the Palestinians as if they are some kind of mongrel living where they have deemed they should go back to live. It's too easy to kind of lump the Jewish people in there, and you gotta keep that in mind, separate it. As I just pointed out, even I'm too often forgetful in that case. But yeah, it just disgusts me when people are treated so badly. And though rage can be a heck of a weapon, it can also blind. But yeah. Anyway. Consists of the Greek prefix genos, meaning race or tribe. So usually you're destroying a whole group, a whole culture. The idea of race itself has never been fully categorized, though many people try to say it is. But honestly, the separating factors are often minuscule. And then the Latin suffix, so it's Greek and Latin. side, meaning killing. So, killing of a peoples. Lemkin developed the term partly in response to the Nazi policies of systemic murder of Jewish people during the Holocaust, but also in response to previous instances in history of targeted actions aimed at the destruction of particular groups of people. And later on, he led the campaign to have genocide recognized and codified as an international crime. So, yeah. First time. Take all those little pills at once. It was first recognized as a crime under the UN General Assembly and was codified as an independent crime in the 1948 Convention and Prevention on the Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, the Genocide Convention, which also brought about that same year the birth of Israel. Current Israel, not ancient Israel. The convention has been ratified by 153 states. We're talking about nation states. The ICC has repeatedly stated that the convention embodies principles that are part of general customary international law, and this means that whether or not states have ratified the Genocide Convention, they are all bound as a matter of law by the principle that genocide is a crime prohibited under international law. So whether you agree with it or not, they're saying, look, it's pretty simple. Internationally, genocide should be prevented at all costs. The ICJ, the International Court of Justice, has also stated that the prohibition of genocide is a preemptory norm of international law, and consequently no derogation from it is allowed. So yeah. The definition of crime of genocide is contained in Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. Was the result of the negotiating process and reflects the compromise reached during the UN member states in 1948 at the time of drafting the convention. It is defined in the same terms as the Genocide Convention in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, as well as the statutes of other international and hybrid jurisdictions. Many nation states have also criminalized genocide in their own domestic laws. Others have yet to do so. And the actual definition as is listed under Article 2. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or part a nation or a national ethnic ethnical, racial, or religious group. As such, um, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction or in whole or in part. In whole or in part. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So, yeah. You could look at the way migrants are being treated. Hell, some of them are actually just American and are imprisoned anyway because of the color of their skin or last name or whatever. And you look at what's going on inside these ICE facilities, many of those actions are being committed. We've found numerous instances of death. Numerous instances of bodily or mental harm, such as beatings and rape. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. You look at the ICE raids on communities, breaking into houses, demanding to see warrants that are not supposed to be the warrants to arrest people. Saying, we've got a warrant for your arrest. And often they're just administrative warrants, not judicial warrants. Which are not the same fucking thing. And the attack on our Constitution, especially like the due process rights and the freedom of speech, freedom of protest. Four, not so much. Five, I've heard of them trying to remove suggestions that there may be removal of children, because we know there's some that's been removed and disappeared from the families. And often these are just people trying to find a better life. Anyway. The elements of the crime of genocide itself may take context of an armed conflict, international or non-international, but also in the context of a peaceful situation. The latter is less common, but is still possible. The same article establishes the obligation of the practicing parties to prevent and punish the crimes of genocide. The popular understanding of what constitutes genocide tends to be broader than the context or content of the norm under international law. Article 2 contains a narrow definition of the crime of genocide, which contains two main elements. One, a mental element, the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, racial, or religious group, national, ethnical, racial, and religious group as such. Two, a physical element, which is the 5 enumerated acts we discussed: killing, bodily harm, inflicting conditions meant to cause physical destruction, preventing births, forcibly removing children. But yeah. With that looked at by the United Nations, I also have under Wikipedia a list of it. But anyway, using Wikipedia, we're going to switch over here to a list of genocides. Let's go all the way, if I can get the mouse to work with me here. Genocides have been going on for a long time. Unfortunately, the name, the concept itself is relatively new, but the act has been going on for quite a while. The earliest one they have listed is the Albigensian Crusade, the genocide of the Cathars. 20-year military campaign, 1209 to 1229, initiated by Pope Innocent III to eliminate Catharism, a Christian sect, in southern France. The church considered them heretics and ordered that they should be completely eradicated. Lemkin referred to the Albigensian Crusade as one of the most conclusive cases of genocide in the context of religion, in religious history. Kurt Johansson and Karen Solveig Bjornson described it as the first ideological genocide. The Taino genocide, directly from Spain and Columbus. The Taino people were the peoples of one of the peoples of Hispaniola that suffered because of Columbus. One of the earliest cases. They were one of the indigenous populations on Hispaniola. Andres Resendez argues that even though disease was a factor, the native population would have rebounded the same way Europeans did during the Black Death if it were not for the constant enslavement in the island's gold and silver mines. According to anthropologist Jason Hickel, a third of Arawak workers died every 6 months from lethal forced labor in the mines. This was from 1492 to 1514. So 22 years. Because it's about this time, that 1514, that the Spanish started the transatlantic slave trade, because Africans were had a better immunity toward European diseases. The native peoples did not. because a whole sea separated them. Two seas, as a matter of fact. Because you've got the Americas and the Caribbean, and then you have pretty much together Europe, Asia, Africa. They're all connected by land. Elsewhere, it's divided by seas or oceans. Believe 68 to over 96% of the Taino people died. The Dutch conquest of the Banda Islands. This is during one of the largest ages of colonialism, starting with Columbus, and now you have all these nations going out and trying to say, this land, and this land, and this land, and this land, these are mine, these are mine, these are mine. Following Bandanese islanders' refusal to abide by treaties to sell nutmeg and mace exclusively to the VOC for less in exchange. So they just wanted a fair deal. Jan Pieterszoon Cohen led a campaign to depopulate the islands through a combination of massacres and starvation, with some Bandanese taken as prisoners. Many drowned attempting to flee. The VOC subsequently imported enslaved peoples to work on their plantations. So it's like, you want a fair deal? Fuck you. And they went on trying to kill, imprisoning, and force displacement of the Bandanese people, bringing in other enslaved peoples from elsewhere to work the plantations. And it was estimated that 23% were killed, 34% fled, and 30% drowned. That's 87% of the population that had existed there. That Banda Islands, now modern day Indonesia. The Iroquois Wars in North America. From 1640 to 1763, the Iroquois were peoples of the northern Midwest and Canada. When we're talking northern Midwest, we're talking U.S. Midwest. Because I often think of places like Michigan and Wisconsin, Illinois. Yeah. As part of the broader Beaver Wars among the indigenous people in Canada, the Iroquois conducted a genocidal war against the Huron people and other Iroquoian and non-Iroquoian people. Settlements were burned, and of the 30,000 Hurons, a few thousand were able to flee and avoid becoming victim of the ethnic genocide. Ned Blackhawk in analyzing the war between the Iroquois and the Huron, found that the Iroquois committed all 5 acts described in the 48 Genocide Convention. Remember the 5 acts we talked about. Zongaria in the Qing dynasty of China. The Zungar Genocide. We'll start moving up quick, so I won't read all these, but yeah. 80% of 600,000 Zungarian. The Dutch Cape Colony and British Cape Colony, modern day South Africa. So we're starting to slowly delve into the 1800s. The 1804 Haitian Massacre. Haiti. Yeah, this is when the Haitian people finally decided to turn on the Dutch, the white population. I think it was mostly like French and Belgian, Dutch, that kind of area there in of Europe. Those peoples. The Black War, genocide of Aboriginal Tasmanians, which is just a little island south of Australia in Van Diemen's Land, modern day Tasmania. The extinction of the Aboriginal Tasmanians was called the archetypical case of genocide by Raphael Lemkin, among other historians, a view supported by more recent genocide scholars like Ben Kernan, who covered it in his book Blood and Soil, A History of Genocide and the Extermination from Sparta to Darfur. The extinction also includes the Black War, which would make the war an act of genocide. So yeah, around almost the complete race. There might have been a few here or there that survived, but yeah. So you think of the Aboriginal people of Australia, and like I said, here you got Australia, and then Tasmania is like just under the continent. It looks like it could go straight up and connect to it. But yeah. The Trail of Tears. Again, the southeastern United States. The 5 civilized tribes. The forced displacement of approximately 60,000 native peoples of the 5 civilized tribes. Yeah, ethnically cleansed by the U.S. government. A variety of scholars have classified the Trail of Tears as either a genocide in and of itself or as a mass genocidal act within the broader genocide of Native Americans. I would put it as an act within. Because you think of all that was done to Native Americans. Jeez. Figures for the number of deaths was forcibly cannot be fully explained since many were forcibly relocated. And that's how we got many who ended up in Oklahoma, because Oklahoma Territory is like, United States like, hey, this is going to be your home from now on. Even though you've lived all over the U.S., congratulations, this is your new home. And it's like, seriously, guys? Seriously? Let's see. The Moriori Genocide in the Chatham Islands of New Zealand. The invasion of the Chatham Islands by New Zealand Maori left the Moriori people and their culture to die off. Those who survived were kept as slaves and were not sanctioned to marry other Moriori or have children within their race. This caused their people and their language to be endangered. According to Moriori elders, a total of 1,561 Moriori died between the invasion of 1835 and the end of the group's slavery in 1863, with others dying of diseases transmitted by Europeans. Yeah, as we've seen, it's not just Europeans who are guilty of genocide, though they're guilty of a few big ones. A fair share of their own, but yeah, other peoples have committed genocides. This is again colonial, where white settlers and colonial powers were like, yeah, you're going to go further out. The Queensland Aboriginal Genocide, which again, Queensland, Australia. Let's see, the three deadliest massacres on white settlers. So it might be actually the Aboriginals pushing back, although it says 0.3 to over 50% of the Aboriginals killed, so, which I can't read the full things here, but yeah. The California Genocide. This is a huge example of the Native American people being put through hell because of white settlers. Because you have the gold rush, the exchange of California from Mexican hands to U.S. hands. Between 1846 and 1873, estimated that non-natives killed between 9,492 and 16,094 California natives. Acts of enslavement, kidnapping, rape, child separation, and forced displacement were widespread. The acts were encouraged, tolerated, and carried out by state authorities and private militias. The Circassian Genocide in Circassia, Russian Empire. This is Russian Empire pre-USSR. This is when they were still under a king or queen, under royalty. Uh, let's see. It was the systemic mass murder, ethnic cleansing, and expulsion of the Circassian population, resulting in 1 to 1.5 million deaths. And the planned extermination mainly uh, of the Muslim Circassians, but other Muslim peoples as well that were in the Caucasus or Caucasus. So yeah, the Selknam genocide. In Tierra del Fuego, modern day Chile, Argentina. The Herero and Nama genocides, German Southwest Africa, modern day Namibia. The Greek genocide and Pontic genocide in the Ottoman Empire, modern day Turkey. Saipho in Ottoman Empire, modern day Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. It's also known as the Assyrian genocide. Slaughter and deportation of Assyrian and Syriac Christians in southeastern Anatolia and Persia's Azerbaijan province by the Ottoman Empire forces and Kurdish tribes during World War I. The Armenian genocide. We're getting modern day because we're dealing World War One. Look how many of these were in the Ottoman Empire. Modern day Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. The Armenian genocide, the Assyrian genocide, the Greek and Pontic genocide. Goodness. The Italian genocide in between the world wars in Italian Libya. Holodomor in Ukraine and the northern Kuban Soviet Union. It's also known as the Ukrainian famine, which was a man-made famine from 1932 to 33 that killed millions of Ukrainians. Holodomor was part of the wider Soviet famine of 30 to 33, which affected the major grain-producing areas of the Soviet Union. The Dersim massacre in Turkey. The mass operations of the NKVD in the Soviet Union. So remember, back in the day, the Soviet Union was much larger than modern day Russia. The Parsley Massacre in the Dominican Republic. Mass killing of Haitians, which is, like we already talked about, Hispaniola is two nations on the one island, Haiti and Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic was killing off Haitians. Huh. Another of the victims of the Holocaust, besides Jewish people, Romani. They were one of the groups often killed, as well as Jewish people. Romani, Jews, communists, homosexuals. If you were any of these, Nazi Germany was like, in the ovens you go. The Nazi crimes against the Polish nation in German-occupied Europe. Genocide of the Bosniaks and Croats by the Chetniks. Yugoslav royalists and nationalists. Informally, colloquially, as the Ravna Gora movement. Huh. The genocide of the Serbs and Holocaust in the independent state of Croatia. Independent state of Croatia, modern day Croatia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yeah, genocide of Serbs and Holocaust of Jews and Romani within the independent state of Croatia, a fascist puppet state that existed during World War II, led by the Ustase regime, which ruled an occupied area of Yugoslavia, so puppet likely to Nazi Germany. And then the most famous of the genocides, the Holocaust. About 2/3 of the Jewish population of Europe. The siege of Leningrad. Some historians and the Russian government have classified the siege, in which German and Finnish policies led to the deaths of more than 1 million civilians from starvation, as a genocide. Yeah. So even though it was during a war, just the tactics used were so brutal to basically be listed as a genocide. The population transfer in the Soviet Union. Shortly before and immediately after World War II, the Soviet Union conducted a series of deportations on a large scale, so a displacement of people. estimated that between 41 and 49, nearly 3.3 million people from different ethnic groups were deported to Siberia and the Central Asian republics. Many deportees died during the journey or due to the harsh climates of Siberia and Kazakhstan. Disease, malnutrition, forced labor, and the lack of housing. So you're not only being sent out there, it's like, we're not giving you crap for it. And you'll probably even be forced to work for us out there as well. It is disputed whether they should be called ethnic cleansing, genocide, or something else. And some historians argue that the Soviet authorities acted with knowledge that the conditions deportees would face would lead to mass casualties. Others argue that no intent to exterminate the repressed people can be identified, and that the main motive of the Soviet authorities was to increase security in disputed border areas. The ethnic groups affected: Soviet Germans, over 1 million. Crimean Tatars, at least 191,044. And Chechens and English, 100,000 deaths known. So yeah. And remember, Crimea is that little hanging part of land underneath, or that's connected to the bottom of Ukraine. If you don't know where Crimea is. So, yeah. It's supposed to connect directly to Ukraine. And about a decade back or so, Russia basically took it out from underneath Ukraine and said it is ours now. The Tamil genocide. So we're getting into the modern day. 2009 is when this ended in Sri Lanka. The Maya genocide. Guatemalan genocide was the massacre of Maya civilians during the Guatemalan Civil War by successive U.S.-backed Guatemalan military governments. U.S. officials aware of all the behavior, but we're like, hey, you do what we need, we'll continue supplying you what you want. It's like, really, guys? The Nigerian Civil War, particularly the blockade of Biafra. In Biafra, 67 to 70. The Bangladesh genocide in East Pakistan, modern day Bangladesh, 1971. Bengali Hindus were the victims. The East Timor genocide, 74 to 99. East Timor, modern day Indonesia, East Timor, Indonesia, modern day Timor-Leste. The Cambodian genocide, 75 to 79. Democratic Kampuchea, modern day Cambodia. This was part of the killings by Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. Uh, 1982, the Sabra and Shatila massacre in Beirut, Lebanon. Sabra and Shatila massacre was 16th to 18th September 1982 killings of civilians, mostly Palestinians and Lebanese Shias, in the city of Beirut during the Lebanese Civil War. It was perpetrated by the Lebanese forces, one of the main Christian militias in Lebanon, and supported by who else? The IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, that had surrounded Beirut's Sabra neighborhood and the adjacent Shatila refugee camps. Goodness. On-Food Campaign, 86 to 89, in Kurdistan of the Iraqi Republic. The Kurds have been pushing for their own nation for quite a while. Many people suggested it, and part of it will include modern-day Iraq. Yeah, Kurds have had a tough go in world history. The Isak Genocide, 87 to 89. The Republic of Somaliland, Somali Democratic Republic. The Bosnian Genocide. This was one I remember during my youth and stuff. Pretty big one you would hear on the news. I think this is the one that you had Milosevic and all that when they were talking about it. But yeah, the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina is where it's at, modern day. That was 92 to 95. And then another one I remember very well as a kid, the Rwandan Genocide in Rwanda, 1994. There's a great movie about it, Hotel Rwanda, the Hutus and the Tutsis. Just because some were more accepted by Europeans than others because of facial features or skin complexion. It's like, really? The massacres of Hutus during the First Congo War. Kivu Zaire, 96 to 97. So the Hutu persecuted the Tutsi in 94. And then turns around, the Hutu were attacked in the First Congo War. In 96, 97. So, Effacer le Tableau in North Kivu, modern day Democratic Republic of the Congo, 2002 to 2003. The Darfur Genocide. Some of y'all may have heard about that. That's 2003 to 2005, modern day Sudan. The Yazidi Genocide, Iraq and Syria within the Islamic State territory. So this was during the War on Terror, 2014-2017. Yazidi genocide perpetrated by the Islamic State throughout Iraq and Syria, and characterized by massacres, genocidal rape, and forced conversions to Islam. Killed thousands of Yazidi men. The Ukrainian genocide. Ukraine, including now Russian-occupied Ukraine. And this is part of the Russia-Ukraine War, 2014 to present. Yeah, Russia's been getting its people and infiltrating Ukraine, making the attacks since, 2014. But there have been mass killings, deliberate attacks on shelters, evacuation routes, and humanitarian quarters, indiscriminate bombardment of residential areas, deliberate and systematic infliction of life-threatening conditions by military sieges, rape, and sexual violence amount to genocide and incitement to genocide with intent to destroy the Ukrainian national group. But that's a current genocide that's listed by some. You've got the persecution of the Uyghurs, a Muslim group in China. And it's happening in Xinjiang, China, 2016 to present. I've heard about this one as well. So these are current genocides going on. Ukrainian genocide, the persecution of Uyghurs. This is the Rohingya genocide in the Rakhine state of modern-day Myanmar, 2016 to present. The military crackdown in October 2016, January 17, and then the second part of the genocide has been since August of 2017. Forced displacement because so many people have fled. It's created the world's largest refugee camp, and others escaped to other nations. The blockade of Nagorno-Karabakh and the expulsion of Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians. Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan. Blockade and ethnic cleansing of Armenian people. Armenians are others who have had a tough go through repeated military offenses in Nagorno-Karabakh and have been characterized as a genocide in multiple sources. 99.9% of Armenians were expelled. And lastly, probably the one almost everybody knows about by now, the Gaza genocide, 2023 to present. More than 10,000 presumed dead under the rubble. Because I remember what that one said. Yeah. But we have other sources about genocides going on. Let's see. Sudan, West Bank, and occupied Palestine. Remember, the occupations are now not just Gaza. They're in the West Bank, taking homes away from Palestinians. An active genocide alert in Ethiopia and the Amhara region. Genocide alert in Sudan. Genocide alert Israel Palestine. This is going back a ways now. And then here's one I found interesting. From Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government at the Carl Ryan Center for Human Rights. And they're talking about Trump's tweet not long ago, a few days now. A whole civilization will die tonight. The day the American president threatened genocide. Because what Trump said essentially amounts to ethnic cleansing. To murder, expulsion, destruction of the culture, everything. So yeah. But this video has already been over an hour in length. I went on babbling long enough about all this stuff, but I wanted to bring y'all this picture, this image of genocide, to give you all some idea of what it really pertained to and how it's really been going on. And like I said, they have going back to 1200, but there are other acts that go back further. I'm not excusing genocide. I'm just saying, goodness knows, we as people have this stupid reaction of wanting to destroy certain others. But yeah. We need to end this tribal BS. As far as you are not accepting my beliefs, my person. So I must exterminate you or drive you away. That needs to end. But yeah. Anyway, as always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing. Ask them to cite their sources. And it can't just be tinfoil hat wearing sources or a bunch of anecdotes tied together to make a source. I'll be putting these links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.